My wife was beautiful. I loved her and did everything to ensure that she lived in comfort. But ironically, she decided to exchange comfort and care for fleeting pleasure. She cheated on me, and it all started from the moment when someone unexpectedly gave her an expensive bouquet of flowers. It was a crash. We tied the knot at a young age and opted to delay starting a family for a while. Our plan was to build up some savings, explore the world a bit, the usual. We're just average folks, neither strikingly attractive nor unattractive, not exceptionally brilliant nor dull. My wife is a tall, slender woman. Her grandparents hailed from southern Italy. She's got this lovely tawny complexion, dark eyes, and jet black hair. Full lips, big eyes, and a strong nose, though she's not too fond of it. But to me, it speaks volumes about her strong character. There's a natural grace in her movements that caught my eye the first time I saw her across the room, even before I saw her face. On the financial front, we're doing pretty well. Thanks to real estate appreciation, we've amassed around $150,000 in assets, even in this tough market. Now, after a few years of living together, I've got just a couple of gripes. She's not as sharp as I once thought, and boy is she stubborn. Once she forms an opinion, she sticks to it like glue, even if she later realizes she's off base. I can present all the logical arguments in the world, get her to admit she's wrong, and even hear her parrot my views to others as her own. But lo and behold, that same idea pops back up months later. It's like every dumb thought she's ever had is etched in stone, and that's a problem for me because intelligence and wit mean the world to me. My spouse is employed by Bycatch Industries in Princeton, which is approximately a 45-minute drive from our residence. Bycatch refers to the unintended marine creatures like fish, turtles, and other species caught in fishing nets that are not commercially valuable. As a result, they are often discarded overboard, usually already deceased. They constitute 70–80% of the total catch, and their wasteful disposal contributes significantly to the rapid depletion of the oceans. The company's practices involve selectively harvesting only the desirable fish while discarding everything else. Interestingly, despite its name, Bycatch Industries is not involved in fishing activities. It is, in fact, a Danish company that specializes in purchasing various types of scrap and surplus items for recycling or resale, and it's thriving. In contrast to many small European businesses operating in the United States, Americans predominantly hold leadership positions within Bycatch Industries. Their core activities revolve around buying, selling, negotiating, and assuming risks. My wife holds a well-compensated position as a buyer-seller, serving as a senior product manager specializing in chemicals. For instance, she procures contaminated scrap methanol from chemical plants and then sells it to suitable buyers, such as in one case where she sold it to a municipal wastewater treatment facility where the contamination is not an issue. She works in an unassuming office located in Princeton, New Jersey. I rarely find myself with the opportunity or desire to visit her office, but around Thanksgiving, while driving past at about 11:30 one morning, I decided to stop in and surprise my wife. I thought I might as well take her out to lunch. Since I know quite a few of her colleagues from various gatherings, I didn't feel the need to announce my arrival. I greeted those I knew, engaged in some small talk, and then made my way upstairs to her workspace. I peeked into her open office door and said, "Hi, love. Do you have a moment for me?" "Why, Chris, it's lovely to see you. What a pleasant surprise." There was a decent-sized bouquet of flowers in a simple glass vase on her desk. "As I was passing by, I wondered if you might be free for lunch. By the way, who gave you the flowers?" They were a few days old, but still nice. A bouquet that likely cost around $70 to $80, perhaps a bit less where we live. "I actually thought they were from you. The card said, 'From your secret admirer,' no name. I was curious why you hadn't mentioned them." "When were they delivered?" I believe it was yesterday. So you didn't send them?" "You're fully aware that I didn't send them. If you truly believed I had, you would have brought it up last night. Frankly, I'm disappointed you accepted them. You're a married woman who should have known better. When exactly did they arrive? Before or after lunch?" Nonsense, they're just flowers. And honestly, I genuinely thought they were from you. Why does the timing matter? I think it was sometime after lunch, maybe around 3 p.m. Look, if you truly believed I sent them, you would have been affectionate last night. Your silence and behavior were unfortunately typical for us. So if I didn't send them, who do you think did? I really have no idea. It could have been anyone. Nonsense. Let's think logically. Your admirer must be either a man or a woman. Those are the only possibilities, wouldn't you agree? Now, in my experience, no woman has ever given me flowers, so we can deduce they're from a man. Oh? With a worried expression. Right. Probably not a woman. Presumably he sent them for a reason. He's your secret admirer. So which of your many admirable qualities do you think he appreciates? How would I know? I have no idea. Come on, Karen. What do men typically associate with sending flowers to a woman? Romance? Voila. Women associate you with romance and men associate you with, well, you know. So your secret admirer finds you attractive and desirable. Most likely it's someone from your environment. An outsider, such as a supplier or customer, may approach you without fear. But an insider may be afraid of harassment allegations. Therefore, he carefully makes inquiries, thinking that you may be available. No one spends $70, $80 without some kind of encouragement. This man flirted with you, believing that you were open to his advances. But he hesitates to come up and say, Karen, let's go sleep together. You are quite straightforward. I'm sure it's not that simple. Honestly, men. Allow me to conclude. You were faced with two options. Either accept the flowers and appreciate the sentiment behind them, thus encouraging him to continue his gestures, or reject the flowers and the person by giving them to someone else or placing them in the coffee area, and then informing everyone in the office, as well as me when you arrived home, that whoever the secret admirer is, they're misguided and mistaken. Furthermore, it's likely someone who was here yesterday afternoon or today because they would have wanted to witness your reaction. You know, to see if the bait was taken. Which it was. So, who matches that description? If you're available for lunch, we can discuss it further. Oh, certainly, I did have prior plans, but it's not a problem. I can cancel them. Let me make a quick call first. As I mentioned, I don't know anyone who would have such thoughts about me. All right, but there's no need to cancel your plans, really. I don't mind having lunch with your colleagues. She answered the phone and told me, having lunch with you is a real treat. Then into the phone she said, Hi, Chris came by to take me to lunch, so I'll have to pass. Maybe another time. Yes, my husband, Chris. All right, talk to you later. Who was that? Just Roland Sinclair from another office. He visits Princeton occasionally. I'll catch up with him later. You were right about the flowers. I didn't even consider it. She picked up the flowers and as we walked through the office said louder than necessary, I really thought these were from you, before dramatically dropping them into the trash with a loud thunk. Walking to the parking lot, I asked, So, does Roland fit the profile? Him? Nah, he's just a co-worker. Nothing special. Why are you making a big deal out of it? It's not important, honey. She knew who sent them, but I didn't press for a name. We had a pleasant lunch. She was affectionate, trying to reassure me about our relationship. For whatever reason, guilt, reassurance, or hormonal impulses, a good time was had by all that evening. Approximately 3 weeks later, during the Bycatch Christmas party, Karen was mingling while I engaged in conversation with Natalie Waske and Julie Sullivan, a couple of her colleagues. As we observed the crowd, a newcomer entered the scene. Have you ever seen a womanizer in action? This guy caught my attention the moment he walked in. He casually hung his coat on a nearby chair and, after scanning the room swiftly, headed straight for a cluster of 3 women, one of whom was my wife. Karen noticed his approach, and from the corner of my eye, I caught her glance at me. The womanizer immediately struck up a conversation with her, much to the obvious irritation of the other 2 women. He started with light touches on her shoulder, then her upper arm, not overtly, but with a level of familiarity that seemed excessive. I couldn't help but think it was overly familiar. While Karen didn't engage much, she did reciprocate by placing her hand on his arm a few times. I inquired, "Who's that man conversing with my wife? You can practically see him salivating." They turned their heads to look. Natalie reacted with a hint of disdain. "That's Roland Sinclair. He's quite a character. He's from the Wilmington office, but he shows up here every week or so and basically wastes our time. He spends half the day boasting and flirting, making suggestive remarks and smart-ass comments. The fool has been reported for harassment 2 or 3 times. Word has it, his sister is married to Sven Cederquist, so they keep sweeping it under the rug. What a sleazeball. You can always spot him because he drives a bright yellow Humvee. What a moron." We all chuckled at that. Well, he seems like a womanizer to me. I better chase him off before my wife ends up having to report him too. Karen's friends had dispersed, either to avoid Roland or perhaps sensing they weren't welcome. As I approached the 2 of them, my wife had her back to me. I casually draped my arm over her shoulder in a deliberately possessive manner. She quickly withdrew her hand from Roland's wrist. She was clearly entertaining unsavory thoughts. While my right hand rested on my wife, I pointedly refrained from offering a handshake. "Hey, I'm Chris, Karen's husband. And you are?" "Oh, Chris, this is Roland Sinclair. He works in accounting at the Wilmington office." "Pleased to meet you," says Roland, withdrawing his hand before offering it. "Do you work with Karen? Handle her accounts or anything?" Chris asks. "No, our work doesn't overlap," Karen interjects quickly. "But we're both fans of the Flyers hockey team." "I see. So, Roland, do you work closely with Karen?" Chris presses. "And I didn't know Karen was into hockey. I've never seen her watch a game." "Yeah, I'm not involved in Karen's work, but I'm a huge Flyers fan," Roland clarifies. "Interesting. Say, Roland, is your wife here? Maybe we could all go to a Flyers game together. Karen and I have never been. So it'd be nice to go with someone who knows the game," Chris suggests. But Karen seems skeptical. "No, Sandra couldn't make it. But a Flyers game sounds great, though Sandra isn't a sports fan, like Karen says you aren't either. Maybe it's better if Karen and I go and you 2 stay home," Roland responds, with Sandra smiling in agreement. "Not exactly a plan. Karen and I have been married long enough for me to realize the importance of sharing activities. I used to play hockey in high school, so I have some familiarity with the game, but I've never been into professional sports. I've always thought that if I were going to support a team, I might as well support one I have some investment in. However, setting aside all that talk, I would actually enjoy watching a game, especially since you mentioned Karen's enthusiasm. I wouldn't mind that at all. If, Sandra, was it? Isn't a fan of hockey. What other activities do you 2 enjoy doing together?" My wife had a concerned expression. She seemed to think I wasn't handling the situation well. "Chris, Roland, and his wife." I gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze, but she ignored my gesture. "Are going through a rough patch right now." "Oh, I'm truly sorry to hear that, Roland. Would you like to talk about what happened?" "Chris, that's really none of our business, is it?" "Do you always speak on behalf of Roland? It's quite bothersome. How can I gauge Roland's feelings if you keep interrupting? But since you're involved, Roland seems to think it's your concern. And since married couples share few secrets, it becomes my concern too. I mean, why bring it up if neither of you wanted to discuss it?" "Oh, really? Why the rudeness? Roland, let me loosen him up with a few drinks, and then we can talk later." She actually pulled me by the sleeve to the bar and ordered drinks for us. She was in a mood. Clearly, I had provoked her more than I realized. All right, so what's causing Roland's issues with his wife? Is he cheating on her? "Chris, I can't divulge that information. It's confidential. Roland definitely doesn't want his marital problems circulating at work, does he? Roland is going through a tough time right now, and I'm just being a supportive friend. Karen, I understand that this might not be the appropriate time or place to discuss this, but if you think I'm indiscreet or unable to keep confidences, then you truly don't know the man you married. It's not only reasonable, but also appropriate for you to share with me What another man tells you about his personal relationships. Firstly, you're not a marriage counselor, and often such stories blur the line between appropriate and inappropriate relationships. Secondly, it's tempting to reciprocate and discuss your own marital difficulties. This is acceptable if you're confiding in a close friend who genuinely has your best interests at heart and no personal agenda concerning your marriage. I understand you want to help Roland and his wife reconcile, but it's easy to start feeling sympathetic towards Roland and offer comfort to someone in pain. However, he may have ulterior motives. I suspect he's interested in you romantically and aims to drive a wedge between us to pursue you. His comments and advice may not be in your best interest. Lastly, as a man, I can offer a male perspective on this situation. I'd feel reassured if you could openly discuss your relationship with Roland with me, ensuring that your supportiveness doesn't cross any boundaries. What exactly are you implying here? Come on, tell me straight. Do you think I'm having an affair with him? Is that what this is about? Well, I'm not. You've been suspicious all evening. What's going on with you? The guilty run when no one chases? She was guzzling her drink as if it were water. While I poured most of my drink into a half-empty beer glass, she was scanning the crowd. It was a night to stay completely sober. I'm not accusing you of having an affair with him. I'm warning you about a threat to us. Look, let's discuss this later. Neither of us wants a public argument. Come on, let's dance, darling. She finished her drink, and I pretended to finish mine before we headed out onto the dance floor. She wanted another drink, and like before, she downed hers quickly while I took a few sips and poured out the rest. Back on the dance floor, she relaxed as we danced slowly, and I whispered sweet nothings in her ear. The next dance was a fast one, which isn't my strong suit, but I managed to keep up. The second dance was fast as well. Before I knew it, Roland was dancing beside me, moving skillfully. I must admit he's quite the dancer. I have to acknowledge his audacity. After a short while, he pushed himself in front of me, and Karen followed suit. I reached out to Roland, gripping his triceps firmly enough to cause discomfort, maybe even leave bruises. I pulled him close to whisper in his ear, just softly enough to avoid wifey overhearing, though with the loud music it was probably as loud as a thunderclap to him. Back off, jerk. You can dance with my wife when you bring your own to the floor. Until then, keep your hands off Karen. If you send her any more flowers, I'll shove the vase where the sun don't shine. Got it? He stared at me with hostility, his body tensed as if ready for a confrontation. Then he lowered his head and walked away. Karen could infer what I had said and confronted me about it, launching into a tirade for supposedly being aggressive with poor Roland. I could see others taking notice, so I firmly grasped her upper arm, leaving no bruises, and whispered in her ear, "We need to have a conversation somewhere more private, away from your colleagues. Put on a smile as you accompany your husband outside," as I escorted her to the parking lot. Poor Roland. He's so lonely. I'm just trying to be his friend, to help reconcile him with his wife. You're being so harsh, Chris. You have no right to be unkind to Roland. Don't ever speak to me or treat me like that again. I'm not a child. Enough with the nonsense. You're clueless. Let me set the record straight. Remember that classic tune, "He ain't nothing but a hound dog, been snooping round my door"? Actually, those aren't the exact lyrics. It's, "You're nothing but a hound dog crying all the time." My mom loved Elvis and sang that song often, plus Roland has every right to feel down. I was referencing the Eric Clapton rendition. Everyone has their reasons for feeling low. Look, Roland's sniffing around you for a reason. His marital issues stem from his infidelity, and I'm sure you're not his only target. I had a hunch, though it was mere speculation, that I had his measure. I'd prefer if you kept your distance from him altogether, but considering you both work for the same company, it's inevitable. You've both acknowledged he has no legitimate reason to see you, so you're not obliged to waste your time entertaining him or going out to lunch with him. I understand he frequently visits your office in Princeton. He's trouble looking for trouble, and he's not going to interfere with our marriage. Chris, I'm an adult. You can't dictate who I can or cannot talk to. Karen, in all the years we've been together, I've never given you a direct order until now. Endure his presence in public because you have to, but under no circumstances are you to be alone with him outside of work. No lunches, no drinks after work. No car rides, no phone calls, no emails, no instant messaging. Do you comprehend? She began to cry, which escalated into sobbing and rambling. Her speech was hardly coherent, and I wondered if it was solely due to alcohol. As I exited the parking lot, she suddenly sat up and exclaimed, Wait, my coat's still inside. Stop. We need to turn back. Your coat will still be there tomorrow. You can retrieve it then. Did you understand what I just said? Listen, damn it. Either you take me back there, or when we get home, I'll hop into my car and come back here on my own. Suit yourself. If you still want to return to the party when we reach home, I'll drive you wherever you want. You're upset, barely making sense, and you've had quite a bit to drink. Roland's trouble. I love you and won't give up on you without a fight. She sulked all the way home. Upon reaching the driveway, she hastily exited the car, stormed into the house, went straight upstairs, slammed and locked the bedroom door, then threw herself onto the bed. I heard the loud thud. I questioned whether I had been too forceful. Now Roland was the victim, and forbidden fruit is tempting. There was no use in checking the home computer. They could chat and message each other all day on their work computers. I mulled over the situation for half the night. I wasn't going to let her go without a fight, but if I lost, she'd be gone. I needed to gather credit card information and conduct a credit check to see what accounts were open. I had to cancel the joint ones and apply for a few cards in my name. I also needed to see the damn lawyer. At least I knew where the bank accounts were. Damn. The following day, upon entering the bedroom to dress, I discovered the door was unlocked. Karen was still asleep as I proceeded to brush my teeth, get dressed, and head to work. At my workplace, where I serve as a field service technician, I have a friend named Grace Chang who oversees the computer systems. I brought her a cup of coffee and took a seat beside her desk, venting about Roland and my wife, seeking advice. Ha! Been there, done that! About 8-10 months ago, I suspected my husband of infidelity as well. Like you, I lacked access to his work emails and had no idea who he might be involved with. I purchased a transponder, actually two, as he owns both a car and a truck. Through logging onto the internet, I was able to track his whereabouts for 3 weeks. He appeared to be driving around aimlessly. I thought, what on earth? On my birthday, he surprised me with a beautiful antique dressing mirror. It turned out he had been visiting antique shops all along. How foolish I felt. Grace, I believe Roland is attempting to deceive me by manipulating Karen with a fabricated tale of woe. I'm genuinely concerned that my wife is falling for it. Don't worry, Karen appears to be a decent person. Listen, I still have the transponders and the necessary software. Bring your laptop tomorrow, and I'll install the software on it. You can borrow the transponders for as long as you need. Stick one on Roland's car, one on your wife's, and you can track their movements. It's simple. Well, Grace, it's certainly a plan, isn't it? Karen may have a genuine innocence and a compassionate nature, but Roland complicates things. There's definitely something suspicious going on. But we'll give them the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise, right? Let's proceed. After finishing work, I swung by a surveillance equipment shop and purchased a clock radio equipped with a built-in color camera and microphone capable of broadcasting within a 500-foot radius. It even included software for recording the signal on a laptop and editing the audio-video. I didn't really have a specific plan. I just figured that having visual evidence could be valuable down the line. Plus, I thought Grace could help me out if I ran into any issues with the software. As it turned out, my worries were unnecessary. I followed the instructions and everything worked smoothly. The tiny camera transmitted both audio and video from a television in my living room to a computer well over 1,000 feet away. While the picture quality was a bit grainy, the sound came through perfectly. The following day, Grace set up my computer to detect the transponders. The data looked promising. Accurate within roughly 20 yards, it displayed a small car icon on a map, accompanied by nearby restaurants, hotels, and attractions. With a click on Google Earth, I could further explore the area. I needed to ascertain Roland's presence in the office, but I was wary of caller ID recognition due to my distinctive voice. Enlisting a friend's help, They called Bycatch Industries' Wilmington office and inquired with the receptionist about Roland's availability in the mid to late afternoon. She expressed concern, stating he had a crucial meeting from 2 to 4, with only a brief 30-minute window before another appointment at 4:30 with someone named Fleming. My friend decided to attempt contact on another day. All set, I left work at noon and drove to Wilmington. There didn't seem to be any security in the parking lot, making it easy to spot a yellow Hummer. I couldn't help but wonder if Roland drove down the street, imagining himself as a courageous soldier navigating through Fallujah, dodging roadside bombs. Following the directions, I placed the transponder where it would receive the strongest signal and connected it to a power source. Before leaving the parking lot, I checked my computer and rejoiced as I saw the icon representing the yellow vehicle. I then headed home. That evening, I installed the other transponder on Wi-Fi's car. Monitoring those pesky creatures posed a challenge within my job. Access to the internet isn't readily available to me. Often I only find out where they've been after they've come and gone. On my way home, I reached out to Natalie Waskey at Bycatch. Natalie, it's Chris Harlow. Do you have a moment? Certainly, sir. Could you please provide your contact details? Thank you. Now, how may I assist you? I appreciate your discretion, Natalie. I'd rather keep this from becoming office chatter. Understood, sir. Here's the thing. Roland might become an issue for me. I don't want to burden you with the responsibility of monitoring my wife, but I thought it reasonable to ask if you could inform me when Roland plans to visit Princeton. We could do that, sir, but are you certain it wouldn't lead to further complications? Absolutely not. I assure you, I won't harm Roland or tarnish his reputation, nor Karen's for that matter. However, I might inform his wife if something were to occur between them, just to ensure fairness between both families. Your involvement will remain undisclosed. If you were to call me from another number, your contribution would be untraceable. Excellent, those were my thoughts exactly. Let me gather the requested information and I'll get back to you. Thank you for contacting Bycatch. Good day. When wifey entered, I had prepared a lovely dinner. She greeted me with chilly politeness. Later, as she retired to the bedroom to work on crossword puzzles, I discreetly installed the additional transponder on her car. As expected, when I checked online, there was a map indicating the positions of both cars marked with a red E1 and E2. Over the following week, I periodically monitored both vehicles whenever I passed a coffee shop with Wi-Fi, but found nothing of significance. Then on Wednesday, Natalie informed me that the shipment would arrive the next morning. Thursday morning, wifey went to work while Roland made a direct trip to Bycatch Industries in Princeton. His car left briefly at lunchtime, returning an hour later. After some investigation, it seemed he had visited the Smoking Pig barbecue restaurant. Although wifey enjoys barbecue, this wasn't conclusive evidence of her involvement. It wasn't until Natalie called to confirm they had a 1-hour lunch at the Smoking Pig that I knew for certain. The atmosphere at home had settled down somewhat during the previous week. That evening, my wife returned home promptly, resembling her usual self more or less. After dinner, we engaged in the usual "how was your day" conversation. In the midst of our chatter, she mentioned having lunch in the cafeteria, enjoying chicken salad with cottage cheese alongside a couple of friends she spent time with. "Wait, you didn't have barbecue?" I asked. She became defensive. "What are you insinuating? Are you accusing me of lying? What makes you think I had barbecue?" "Well, what's that reddish-brown stain on the pocket of your blouse? Too dark for ketchup, too thick for wine. Smoking Pig barbecue sauce. And you do enjoy barbecue, so where did the stain come from?" "I must ask, Dr. Watson, has Sherlock Holmes stumbled upon a mystery?" "It's just a spot on my shirt," she replied, her expression tense as she tried to remove the stain. "More like a stain on your honesty. You lied about going out for lunch, didn't you? You and Roland went to that barbecue place for lunch and you're lying about it. I'm serious here. I won't tolerate you sneaking around behind my back undermining our marriage, damn it. What on earth makes you think of Roland all the time? If I get a flat tire on the way home, you'd blame it on Roland. You can't dictate who I can or can't see. I won't let you have that control over me. I'm correct, aren't I? If you deny it, I can contact Phyllis at Bycatch and inquire, you know. She despised Phyllis. Fine, fine. But all I did was have lunch with him. Nothing occurred and nothing will. How did you find out? Did someone from work spot us? The innocent have nothing to fear. Nobody exposed you, just logical deduction. The fact that you'd deceive me is troubling, Karen. But you're correct, dear. I can't dictate your actions. Lincoln abolished slavery. Ultimately, we both have the freedom to do as we please. If you truly prefer Roland over me, then I won't interfere. Honestly, given your recent demeanor, if it wasn't him, it would be someone else eventually. Stop! Leave Roland alone. And if you're having me monitored, then leave me alone. It's a waste of your money. I resent being treated like a child and being told who I can associate with. You're fixated on Roland and trying to control me. You're sick. This is absurd. Out of the 300 million people in this country and in the 5 years we've been acquainted, Roland is the only individual I've cautioned you about. I'm not attempting to exert control over you. I'm merely informing you of the repercussions of continuing down the current path. If you don't behave like a committed partner and make the necessary compromises, you won't have a successful marriage. It's as simple as that. Look, I explicitly told you not to spend time alone with him, yet you went to lunch with him anyway. What's worse, you lied about it, so consider this a warning. Frankly, I feel hurt by your actions and somewhat apprehensive about our future together. I genuinely don't believe I'm being unreasonable here. Well, I disagree. I'm not engaging in any inappropriate behavior with him. I'm just helping him through a rough patch. Perhaps we're too emotionally invested to be objective about this. Let's call your sister and get her perspective on who's being reasonable and who isn't. She always takes your side. Let's forget about involving her. I'm capable of making my own decisions, and I stand by them. After much contemplation, I found myself deeply wounded. It seemed to me that my wife was purposefully inflicting emotional harm, and I harbored a desire for retaliation. If I possessed photographs depicting her and Roland engaging in intimate activities, or even just one of her alone but with implications of their involvement, I could tarnish their reputation. Anticipating the worst, I decided to take precautionary measures. I visited a lawyer's office and purchased a divorce kit, an unexpected turn of events. As a bonus, they provided a will kit free of charge. However, the grim reality set in. I would need to sell our house to settle her portion. Despite the significant increase in its value due to my extensive renovations and rising property prices in the area, the equity stood at around $150,000, while our combined savings and vehicle equity totaled only $15,000. Karen would be entitled to half of this. That didn't feel right, considering most of our income came from me. I needed to ponder on that. I completed the paperwork and sealed it in an envelope effortlessly. While at it, I also filled out the will kit, dividing my estate equally between my parents and the Boy Scouts. I placed it with my work materials until I could have it witnessed. I bought a new lock for the front door but didn't manage to install it. I searched until I found the instructions for the garage door opener and learned how to change the code. The tracking screen didn't reveal anything noteworthy the following week or the week after. On Wednesday of the third week, while I was in North Jersey, I visited a panetteria with free Wi-Fi. I logged in and noticed that Roland had driven to Princeton that morning, but had stopped for 11 minutes at 8:30 a.m. The location was an off-ramp on I-95, approximately 10 minutes from Bycatch. It could have been anything, but there's a Holiday Inn Express and a sleep-in nearby. I called the sleep-in asking for Roland Sinclair, but they had no record of such a person. I then dialed the Holiday Inn, but I disconnected the call before it could connect to a room. I made my apologies to the client and made my way to Princeton. By 10:30, the lobby was deserted. I buzzed the front desk and a young man emerged in a wrinkled white shirt, scuffed shoes, and creased black trousers that hadn't met an iron in ages. Introducing myself as Roland Sinclair, I explained that I had locked myself out and forgotten my room number. He seemed skeptical until I slipped him a bundle of 5 $20 bills. "Of course, sir, I remember you, Mr. St. Clair," he said, his tone changing instantly. There was some shuffling behind the desk, and he winked at me. "Here you go, Mr. Sinclair. Room 114. I went upstairs, strategically placing the clock radio for a clear view of the bed and discreetly pocketing the hotel's clock. Testing the reception, it worked perfectly. Using the hotel's Wi-Fi, I tracked their location. Damn. Roland was only 3 miles away. And here I was thinking they'd stop for lunch first. I hurried out, got into my car, and drove to the Denny's across the street. A few minutes later, the yellow Hummer pulled into the Holiday Inn parking lot. The video signal was not received from my position. The motion sensor may have triggered, which prevented the transmission of the signal. I really should have read the instructions more carefully, but I can't remember if they mentioned anything about it. After waiting 2 minutes, I decided to drive up to the hotel. I parked right around the corner from room 313, making sure I wouldn't be seen if they happened to look out the window. The reception was amazing. She came out of the bathroom, still fully dressed, and walked over to Roland, who was also fully dressed. They were hugging each other, and he said, "I would like you to take off the extra weight for me." She smiled and did as he said. "Oh, Karen, you take my breath away." My wife replied, "I did it for you." "What are you going to tell him, that you did this to impress your lover?" "Something like that. I'll tell him I did it to surprise him. Maybe he'll like it." I dialed her mobile number and heard it ring in her purse. She didn't even look at him. I turned down the volume on my computer and left a message, trying my best to keep my voice from breaking. "Hello, my love. I'm sitting at work introducing you, and I decided to call to tell you about my rich imagination. See you later." But in the end, after a few minutes, I watched my wife cheat on me. I had a video saved on my computer and I got tired of watching it. It's time for revenge. I went home, sat down at my computer, and connected to the internet. I wanted to hide my wife's face a little so that I could pretend that I didn't recognize her in this movie. It took me a while to figure out the necessary software, but in the end, I succeeded. I went to one of those amateur websites where users can upload photos and videos. I created a fake ID, RSTC, and a temporary email address. Using a fake ID, I uploaded a video clip along with some comments. I have carefully prepared everything to make it look like my wife's lover made this video and uploaded it to the site. Of course, the likelihood of wifey stumbling upon the website without my guidance is non-existent. The plan was to use some of the phrases and commands that Roland used towards her. At first, she may dismiss the first few, but eventually she will realize that she knows them and will be alarmed. To begin with, I came across them while browsing adult websites. I'll let her get the details out of me, and then reluctantly agree to show her the site. This should calm Roland down. She arrived home a bit later than usual, but appeared outwardly normal, albeit slightly downcast. I had prepared a salad and chicken scallopini with roasted Italian vegetables. "So, dear, did you have a pleasant afternoon?" Her expression turned apprehensive. "Well, receiving your suggestive message on my phone was a pleasant surprise. Other than that, nothing remarkable happened. I'm exhausted. If you're still in the mood for romance, it'll have to wait until tomorrow." "Oh, that. Actually, it's the way you walk and move, somewhat languid or maybe a bit tipsy, and you smell different, like lavender soap with a hint of musk. Did you stop for drinks?" She blushed faintly. "No, I came straight home from work." I intended to touch her and kiss her, as I usually did, but instead I felt an irresistible disgust. It dawned on me that what I had witnessed earlier had completely unsettled me. I didn't expect my feelings to change over time. I no longer felt anger and contempt for her. It was pointless for me to keep talking to her. Why bother? If she thought Roland was so wonderful, she could have him. What's the point of me being with her if she doesn't need me? If I had convinced her that Ronald had posted videos of her on the internet, she would have left him, of course. But then she could have tried to make peace with me. She would cling to me like toilet paper to the sole of a shoe. It was better for me to move forward and develop a strategy accordingly. So I've never visited this site, and as far as I know, she's never come across it. I didn't make any attempts at intimacy with her that night. I just didn't care. The following day, once she had left the house, I arranged for a messenger service to collect the divorce papers and deliver them to wifey's workplace at 4 p.m. Then I headed to the bank to reorganize our finances, ensuring an equal split between our savings and brokerage accounts. With her away at work, I proceeded to close all our joint credit cards. Upon returning home, I changed the front door lock and neatly packed her work clothes in a suitcase. I placed her other clothing from the closet into heavy-duty garbage bags. Logging on, I confirmed that the Humvee was in Wilmington and wifey's car remained at her workplace. I didn't bother emptying her dresser. Instead, I secured it with a rope to prevent the drawers from falling out and used a two-wheeled cart to transport it to the car. It was quite a struggle to lift it onto the roof racks, almost exhausting myself. I filled the car with trash bags, remembering to unplug the garage door opener before locking up the front door. Then, I drove to her mother's cottage, where her mom was surprised to see me. I requested that she refrain from contacting her daughter until after 3 p.m., as I still had more belongings to move. On the second trip, I loaded the bed and mattress onto the roof of the car, along with bedding, her bedside table, and more bags of items in the trunk. For the final trip, I gathered her CDs, knickknacks, books, and other belongings into boxes. Driving slowly to her mother's, I looked like a modern-day Dust Bowl refugee. Her mom commented, "I like the idea of her staying in the garage. It serves as a reminder that this is temporary. In 4 or 5 months, it will be uncomfortably cold, which will motivate her to find a new place. I've always appreciated you, Chris. Would it be too much to ask you to stay in touch? Grace, I'd be happy to stay connected, especially if it means enjoying a home-cooked meal from time to time." I made the bed, turned on the lamp and the alarm clock, and even took the liberty of making the bed, being such an attentive person like me. I put her toy, along with the spare batteries, on her pillow and covered her with a blanket, deciding that her mother should not run into it, although her mom probably has her own toy. At 3:10, I found myself sharing a beer with her mom while she dialed Karen's office. "Karen, I just wanted to inform you that Chris has kicked you out, and I have to take you in, at least for now. Chris brought most of your belongings over and stashed them in the garage. I don't know what you were thinking, you silly thing." And then she hung up. "Is this truly the end, Chris? You and Karen appeared so happy. What really transpired?" I shared some of the details with her without being overly explicit. That pretty much marked the end of our marriage. It seems your daughter hasn't grasped the essence of marriage and our shared responsibilities. I doubt she's ready for it yet. Perhaps she will be when she remarries, although I'm not very hopeful. Time will tell. On the way back home, I called Roland's wife and informed her of the situation. She rudely told me to mind my own business. I reiterated that it was indeed my business, given that my soon-to-be ex-wife was involved with her husband but received no gratitude. Oh well, you can't please everyone. I had drafted a thoughtful letter, or so I thought. "Karen, you were correct. Your willingness to assist Roland in resolving his marital issues, whatever they may be, is commendable. While this matter holds significance for both you and him, it holds little importance for me. I genuinely want you to find happiness. So, as I promised, I am releasing you from our marriage. You can now fully dedicate yourself to Roland, and to whoever else may come into your life, as he has replaced me. I may not know what you seek in life, but upon reflecting on our time together, I am relieved that your future no longer involves me. Rest assured, I will refrain from speaking ill of you, and will maintain politeness whenever our paths cross. May you discover peace and joy in your journey. Chris." I returned to her mother's house, unloaded the remaining plastic bags into the garage, and placed the letter in a sealed envelope on the bed. After bidding farewell and kissing her mom goodbye, I made my way back home. As I approached our neighborhood, I parked a couple of blocks away from our house. With concerns about potential retaliation from Karen or Roland, I preferred to keep my car out of sight. I walked through the street behind ours, cutting through Mrs. Corbin's yard, which bordered our property. Once inside, I locked the back door behind me and cautiously looked out for any sign of Karen. Upon checking the computer, I noticed Roland's truck parked at his house in Wilmington, while Karen was just leaving work. It seemed she hadn't received her mother's message yet. I decided to update the answering machine, informing callers that Karen no longer resided at this number and provided her cell phone number for those trying to reach her. I'll spare you the sounds of frustration, incessant phone calls, and Karen's persistent knocking on the door. Initially, she denied anything beyond conversation with Roland. However, by the week's end, she confessed to being carried away once, promising it wouldn't recur. Fortunately, I didn't need to mention the videotape. On Friday, her mother called, arranging a meeting with Karen at her house on Saturday, which I agreed to. I came up with an idea of how to save money on divorce. I drew up a contract that stipulated that in the case of adultery, if the evidence convinced the judge, the guilty party would dissolve the marriage, paying compensation in the amount of only $10,000. I deliberately left the wording a little rough and set up another meeting with Byrne, my lawyer. I presented it to him. Bert, the agreement should appear rudimentary. My intention is to deceive her into signing what she might perceive as a personal arrangement. I need you to review it, and where necessary, modify it to ensure it becomes a legally binding, foolproof contract, ideally without altering the amateurish tone of the document. He looked at it again. I suppose I could find fault and overestimate the fees, but they are enough as it is. I've dealt with several prenuptial agreements, but with one like yours. This is something new. You will need 2 copies, one for each side, and they must be certified and dated by someone. Would her mother suffice? Legally, yes, but would she confirm her signature later in court? It's risky. It's better to involve someone impartial. The fee was modest, and the scheme was in place. We met at her mom's place, just the 2 of us. She was dressed quite provocatively, in a summer weight dress and barefoot with no underwear as far as I could tell. Karen, did I get the time wrong? I thought your mom said 12:30. No, you're right on time. Why would you think otherwise? Well, considering how you're dressed, I thought maybe Raleigh was stopping by. I haven't seen Roland for a while, and I'm not planning to see him anymore. I dressed like this for you. Chris, I've really messed things up, haven't I? What day was that? Huh? You mentioned not seeing him for a while, so I asked which day you were referring to. The day before you kicked me out. Oh, I'm sorry. There was no reason for you to stop seeing him. I mean, he's your friend, and a friend in need is a friend indeed, whatever that means. Well, I think you were right about his marital problems. You see, Wait a moment. Do you recall? Raleigh prefers you not discuss his marital issues with me. That's confidential, you know. Especially after all the effort you've put into helping Raleigh and Sandra reconcile, I can't imagine you'd spill the beans now. Really. I must admit, at first, I thought you were helping him cope with problems in bed, given his age. He wouldn't want that to become public, would he? I trust your efforts paid off for them. All right. Maybe I deserved that, but please spare me the sarcasm. I admit I've been foolish, but I love you. I truly hope you can forgive me, though I understand if you can't. You must despise me. I'd like to keep talking, but it's already 12:15 and I'm starving. Change into casual clothes and we'll head to the pub. I steered the conversation towards light topics in the car. We found ourselves in a secluded booth at the back of the pub. Do I hate you? You asked. Of course not. I make a conscious effort not to harbor hatred towards anyone, including you, Raleigh, or corrupt politicians. Hatred eats away at the soul. To avoid hating you, I've had to find it in myself to forgive you. She seemed surprised and her whimpering ceased. But it's more than that. If it were just a one-time foolish mistake on your part, perhaps I could eventually move past it. However, after much reflection, I've come to realize that the issue runs deeper. It's not just a momentary lapse in judgment, it's a fundamental immaturity. I offered you numerous chances to reassess your actions, yet you remained oblivious. I don't entirely fault you for that. It seems to be a trait of yours, at least for now. Because it's not entirely your fault, forgiveness comes easier. There may be a possibility that with time and maturity you'll gain wisdom, but I'm not inclined to stick around and wait for that uncertain future. You possess brilliance in many areas, but there are glaring deficiencies in areas I hold dear, and I have little patience for ignorance. Chris, trust me. I've matured rapidly in recent weeks. I believe we can salvage our marriage, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. What steps do you think we need to take? Well, I've pondered on that. I had complete faith in you, but it was misplaced. One of your strengths is your empathy towards others. You're almost like a modern-day Mother Teresa, albeit with a different calling. Just imagine the tragedy if someone's grandfather had married her, and she ended up as a housewife in Peoria. All those people in India would have been left without her aid. Mother Teresa was born in Peoria? I never knew that. Is that true? I was speaking figuratively. She was born in Macedonia. Anyway, that's how I feel about marrying you and confining you, restraining you. I mean, if someone is feeling depressed, has low self-esteem, a terrible spouse, problems in bed life, I could spend some time talking to them. Share a joke to lighten their mood or give them a few dollars, but that would be the extent of it. How much good would that really do? Hardly any. But you, my goodness, you truly go the extra mile to help them. It would be inappropriate for me to interfere with such a calling. Roland and undoubtedly many others would be left to fend for themselves. There were no others, just one time with Roland and... Oh, that's genuine humility. A wealthy man with plenty to offer donates millions to charity. But when questioned, humbly states, "Oh, I simply assist where I can." Truly, you're being overly modest, but I comprehend. Modesty, too, is a virtue. I wasn't inclined to make it too straightforward for her. Chris, I truly understand the mess I've made of everything. I've matured significantly. I genuinely have. Let me ponder over it, Karen. Ultimately, it boils down to whether I want to risk wasting more years of my life with you or move forward. Shall we meet again tomorrow? Perhaps here at 12:30? Of course, absolutely. 12:30. She was waiting for me as I arrived at the door at 12:35. I couldn't tell how long she had been there, but her beer glass was only a third full. As previously, we engaged in small talk. I refrained from inquiring whether her mother's garage was starting to feel comfortable and homey. All right, here's what I've been contemplating. From my perspective, having slipped up once, there's a risk of it happening again. If I have to endure the pain of my spouse being unfaithful, I want some compensation for it. So here's the proposal. If I catch you cheating and can prove it in court, you're out the door with 10 grand and I keep the rest. Now, it's only fair that I extend the same offer to you. It penalizes the adulterer. If we both agree to this arrangement, we can put this behind us and move forward with our lives. I passed the amateurish agreement, riddled with insignificant misspellings, across the table to her. As anticipated, she skimmed through it quickly and remarked, "Okay, it looks fair. I can sign this. I really appreciate your leniency. I'm not sure I could handle being in your shoes. Let's hope neither of us finds themselves in my position in the future. Dante, could you step over here for a moment?" The proprietor, a casual acquaintance of ours, promptly approached. "Ah, Chris, Karen, is there an issue? New help in the kitchen always spells trouble for me." "Not at all, Dante. Karen and I are formalizing an agreement between us and we need someone to witness our signatures. Would you mind doing this for us? You don't need to review the documents as you're simply verifying the signing." Of course, Dante is happy to assist his friends. It was done in a flash. Karen and I now possessed a signed, witnessed legal document. What ensued was akin to a second honeymoon, with vows of fidelity, love, and the like. However, she remained obstinate, and I suspected her affair wasn't entirely concluded. On Monday, I returned to the motel. The same clerk was working as usual. "Troy, can I talk to you for a moment?" "Of course." "Listen, whenever someone makes a reservation for Roland Sinclair, give them the same room as last time. Room 114, and here's something for your trouble." "Well, I'm not sure. Desk clerks are rarely rocket scientists. Look, you need to assign the customer a room. He's stayed in that room before and presumably likes it. So isn't it reasonable to give him a room he likes? One he's familiar with. If anyone asks which they won't, it's just good customer service. Of course, if the customer requests a different room, that's fine. Give them that room." "Well, okay." And he took the money. At 9 o'clock on Thursday, I received a brief phone call. The accountant is back. And Natalie hung up. I was off work that day, so I checked the tracking program. Sure enough, Roland had stopped at the motel that morning on his way to Princeton. At 11:45, my phone rang again. Trouble in paradise. She said she won't be back today. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. Your friend said goodbye to us all until next time and left. Good luck, Cry. I hope it's not what it seems. I checked the tracking. They were heading toward the motel, but stopped at a steakhouse. Good. There was plenty of time. I was seated in a parking lot opposite the motel, enjoying a delicious sandwich from the Krusty Loaf Deli. After brushing off the crumbs, I sipped on a cup of coffee as they pulled into the parking lot, parking directly in front of room 114. I managed to capture some photos of them embracing beside their cars before heading to the motel room, hands in each other's back pockets. After a brief moment, I drove into the parking lot, remaining out of sight as before. My computer had already begun recording the scene as I crossed the street. The conversation was different this time, but the actions mirrored previous encounters. Here's the contract Chris drafted. It was rather embarrassing. He insisted I sign it right there in that awful pub he frequents, the Jolly Big Joint, over on Main. That strange fellow who owns it, Dante something or other, witnessed it. I mean, who would compose such an amateurish document? You know? It may sound trivial, but Roland, this is the final time, at least for the foreseeable future. I don't want him to find out. Not that he would, but he discovered once before, so it's possible again. That wouldn't be ideal. Karen, check this out. Can you believe this is supposed to be a contract? It's incredibly informal and full of typos. It wouldn't hold up in court. Let's just forget about it. It's like something out of a cheesy legal drama. Who's Perry Mason? He was a TV lawyer, kind of full of himself. He'd grill people on the witness stand until they cracked. It was all pretty unbelievable. But forget about that. Come here, let's have some fun. She moved closer. Raleigh, you're not paying attention. This is important. Don't be ridiculous, Karen. You said that last time. We need each other. Don't you enjoy what we have together? With me, you can ask for anything, do anything, and we make it happen. Look. During their conversation, he gradually began to molest her. The two of them sang in a chorus worthy of professionals. If the aliens could hear this, they would conclude that we have a language that we use only during intimacy. I've had enough. I closed the window and tried to work with the sound turned off. It didn't work out for me, so I started working on this story. I looked up when Karen blurted out, "Oh my God. Look at what time it is. Raleigh, get dressed. I have to go home." No, damn it, I don't have time for a shower. I contemplated my next move. Eventually, I drove over to their room, parked the car, and positioned myself beside the door. My digital camera had the capacity to record about 5 minutes of conversation, and I didn't have to wait long. I activated the camera as soon as I heard the chain slide off the latch. Karen emerged, calling back, "Okay, Raleigh, same time next week. You can see him tomorrow if you want." Eek. Damn it, you scared. What are you doing here? Oh my God. I'm doing exactly what you're doing. Witnessing the end of our marriage. Don't bother going home. You're not welcome there anymore. I changed the locks. I'll drop your things off at your mom's. No, Chris, you can't. Oh yes, I can. I've gone the extra mile already, and you're the fool. That afternoon was worth $100,000. I get the house and our investments, and you only get 10 grand, but I'm sure you figured that out by now. Chris, you despicable jerk, you can't do this. There was no point in lingering around to gloat. As I opened my car door, Roland's head appeared around the corner. Raleigh, I hope Karen's unique approach to marriage counseling helped you and Grace. Make sure to bring them both to the Flyers game. She'll really enjoy it. It's known for the intense matches. Despite Karen's attempts to disrupt the divorce proceedings and her subsequent efforts to claim half of the assets, everything proceeded smoothly. Despite her pleading and manipulation, our agreement remained intact. I successfully rid myself of her on my own terms. I couldn't help but wonder what I would have done if she had behaved differently. Would I have remained married? But dwelling on hypotheticals is pointless. Roland and Grace ended their relationship. Karen attempted to relocate to Wilmington so they could be together. But last I heard, they had separated and Karen was residing in Tulsa. Good riddance.